Welcome to True Crime Discoveries. On this channel, I cover mysteries including crime, accidents, and disappearances. If this kind of reporting interests you, you're in the right place. On April 10th, 2018, a 16-year-old boy did exactly what he was supposed to do. He called 911. He gave his name, he gave his location, and he explained that he couldn't breathe. Help was never sent, and that single fact is what makes this story so difficult to sit with. This is the story of Kyle Plush. Before getting into what happened that day, it's important to understand who Kyle was. Kyle Plush was 16 years old, and he lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was a student at the Seven Hills School, a private college preparatory school. He was extremely close with his parents. People who knew Kyle describe him as thoughtful and polite, the kind of teenager who followed rules and trusted adults. And that detail matters more than it might seem at first. Kyle trusted systems. He trusted that if you ask for help, help would come. April 10th didn't stand out in any way. Kyle went to school like he always did. After classes ended, he stayed for tennis practice, something that was already part of his routine. When practice wrapped up that afternoon, students began leaving campus. The school day slowly faded into the early evening. Kyle walked out to the family's minivan parked in the school lot. At that point, there was no emergency. Nothing about the day suggested that anything was wrong. What happened next is not disputed. At some point, after reaching the van, Kyle entered the rear cargo area. The minivan had a third-row seat designed to fold forward to allow access to the storage space in the back. While Kyle was in the back of the vehicle, that seat collapsed backward. Suddenly, Kyle was trapped. He was pinned head down by the weight of the seat, stuck in a position that restricted his breathing and limited his movement. He tried to free himself, but he couldn't. And this is important to understand. Kyle was conscious. He knew exactly what was happening, and he knew he needed help. So, Kyle did what he'd been taught to do. He called 911. Kyle used Siri to call 911 because his arms were trapped. During the first 911 call, Kyle informed the dispatcher that he couldn't hear them and that he was trapped in his van outside the school. But something went wrong on the other end of the line. Responding officers arrived near his location, which they had attempted to track using GPS. The cell phone GPS location led police officers to the thrift store parking lot across from the school. With no response from Kyle and no discovery of the van, they cleared the assignment in just under 11 minutes. The dispatcher misheard Kyle's last name and mistakenly believed the call was a pocket dial, an accidental call with no real emergency behind it. The call was disconnected. No emergency response was sent. Kyle called 911 again. He understood the seriousness of the circumstance. Once more, he tried to explain the situation. Once more, he spoke calmly, not because he wasn't in danger, but because that was who he was. He said, "This is not a joke. I am trapped inside a gold Honda Odyssey van in the parking lot of Seven Hills. Send officers immediately. I'm almost..." That calmness worked against him. Because Kyle didn't sound panicked, the dispatcher failed to recognize the urgency of the situation. Amber Smith was the dispatcher who answered this call. She said she couldn't hear anything, which is why she sent Kyle a text message requesting the address of his emergency. Amber did call him twice. Kyle never responded. She did not relay this information to the police. The call was misclassified again. Still, no help was dispatched. This wasn't a technical failure. The phone worked. The system worked. What failed was human judgment. After the second call, Kyle remained trapped inside the van. Time passed. Around him, normal life continued. People moved through the school grounds. Cars came and went. No one knew what was happening just a short distance away. Even when someone is conscious and calm, the body can only compensate for so long. Kyle could not reposition himself. He could not relieve the pressure, and he could not alert anyone nearby. Meanwhile, the emergency system had already categorized the situation as non-urgent. Once that happened, there was no follow-up. Kyle remained unseen. Kyle's parents expected him home. When he didn't arrive, concern quickly set in. They were informed that he never arrived to play his tennis match, something uncharacteristic of him. They knew something was wrong. They returned to the school to look for Kyle. That's when he was found, unresponsive, inside the van. Emergency responders were finally called. Kyle Plush was pronounced. Almost immediately, questions began to surface. How could someone call 911 twice, say they couldn't breathe, and still receive no help? How could a teenager die in a school parking lot without anyone noticing? And how much time had passed between Kyle's call for help and his discovery? An investigation followed, and it confirmed what Kyle's family believed from the very beginning. If emergency responders had been dispatched when Kyle called, he likely would have survived. During the investigation, Amber Smith's supervisors said that her actions during the call were unacceptable. She allegedly told them that her computer had frozen, preventing her from properly relaying critical information to police on the scene. The investigation revealed that she pressed the tone to indicate she was having trouble during the call. It was also discovered that police officers spoke over the radio, stating that they believed it to be a prank call before closing out the assignment. One officer attempted to continue the search by looking into the only van located in the thrift shop parking lot. Unfortunately, Kyle was in the school's overflow parking lot, which was never searched. The city of Cincinnati reached a settlement with Kyle's family. Emergency call handling policies were reviewed, and additional training was implemented. The dispatcher was suspended pending investigation. Despite deeming Amber Smith's handling of the 911 call unacceptable for not relaying critical information, including the vehicle description, she was allowed to return to work after the investigation concluded. She had only received 6 days of administrative leave. Kyle Plush's case didn't end in Cincinnati. Today, it is used in dispatcher training programs across the country because it exposed something deeply uncomfortable. We tend to believe that emergencies always sound frantic. Kyle's story proves that this isn't true. Kyle was calm. Kyle was clear. Kyle asked for help. And because he didn't sound afraid enough, help never came. Kyle Plush's story isn't about crime in the traditional sense. It's about what happens when someone follows the rules and the system meant to protect them fails to listen. Kyle didn't ignore warning signs. He didn't take unnecessary risks. He didn't do anything wrong. Kyle did everything right. Kyle Plush was 16 years old. He trusted that calling 911 meant help was coming, and he deserved to live. If you believe that stories like this deserve to be remembered, you can support this channel by subscribing. Thank you.